We're always switching between the whole and the parts. You cannot learn the parts if you do not find meaning.
It's a very tedious process of observation, documentation, and making specific child interest to build the curiosity.
That Montessori begins at birth. Montessori believed that writing should come first. Because whatever your thoughts are, you can put them down.
So there are no academics in the kindergarten. Students are mainly learning a lot through oral. So there's not a rhythm in the classroom in terms of songs, poems.
Visual media is very much a philosophy that needs to be imbibed. So if a parent is in the classroom, our voices off.
We're not focusing on the child, we're focusing on the outcome for society, and we want these finished products. And what that meant is that schools became big, classrooms became very large, and I think something breaks with that. With a microschool, we're saying, let's actually focus on the thing that matters the most. We call it the learning loop.
Admissions have become easier.
I really want to know who said admissions have become easy.
I'm sure the parents on the other side of the screen are going to listen. Is the school? Nobody's answering that question. According to the latest numbers from the Press Information Bureau, India's school education system serves 24.8 million students, 1.47 million schools, and over 10 million teachers. The numbers are massive. But let me pause here and share the real truth. It's been 12 years since I launched Kidsstoppress.com, and back then to even now, the one question that every parent asked me was, how do I choose the right early year school for my child, and how do you know which one is the right one for you? All these years later, the question hasn't changed. In fact, the exact same question I asked myself when I was hunting for a school for my children. Here's the truth, there is no right school, there is no perfect school, but there is a right school for your child. That is the question that you should ask. Which is the right school for my child, for my family, which blends into the philosophies and the value system that I have as a parent. And that's why today's episode is about how do you know which is the right school, which pedagogy, which philosophy of learning is right for my child. Because the reality is mainstream education in India is dominated by standardized testing, rote learning and board exams. The ASA report tells us that less than half of class 5 children can read class 2 level text. So we really have to ask ourselves, are our kids learning or are we just preparing them for exams? And here's where I feel so many of us as parents get it wrong. We see preschools as just a feeder or a stepping stone into a big school. We're not looking as preschools as being formative early years value system, learning systems for our children, developing the love of learning, curiosity, fostering that belief. It's where a child feels secure, where their hand-eye coordination is built, where their curiosity is nurtured, where they begin to love learning. That's what lays groundwork for lifelong learners. If we reduce early education to rote, to exams and cracking the interviews for big school, we've lost the point completely. But thankfully, change is here. There's a growing demand for schools that don't just churn out students who hack the admission system and process, but are teaching us interdependence, collaboration, that are teaching us independence, collaboration, nurturing curiosity, emotional and mental well-being. That's why philosophies like Montessori, Reggio Emilia, Rudolf Steiner School and microschools now are fixing and finding space and resonance in India today. And I know that parents today have little choice where they feel overwhelmed, but every philosophy sounds promising, every school sounds inspiring, but I really want you as parents to know and find out and reflect for yourself which one is the right school for your child, which philosophy is the one that resonates for you and your family. Today we have with us Veena Parekh of Harmony Montessori, who is the founding principal with 12 plus years as a Montessori directress dedicated to child learning. We have Sai Gaddam, co-founder Comini microschool, computational neuroscientist, author and co-founder Building Personalized Learning Systems. We have Sejal Shah of Ubuntu Montessori, who's a leader in nurturing 200 plus children annually We have Nama Singh of Circles and Cycles, who's the founder of Reggio Emilia Inspired Preschool, rooted in empathy, innovation and family partnerships. We have Gauri Savla from Trida, Rudolf Steiner School, Steiner Waldorf teacher and a mentor with 8+ years shaping holistic primary education. Each one represents a different philosophy, and today we are going to explore one big question. What should education look like in the 21st century for our children right here in India? Welcome to each one of you today, and thank you for gracing us with your time, your energy and the ability to share everything that each of your philosophies and pedagogies have to share, because I think it will add so much value to a confused, new, vulnerable parent. I'm just going to start off with a very simple question, and I'd love to admit to all the parents watching out there, I know a lot about each of these amazing pedagogies, systems, philosophies. I'm just a learner here, willing to learn and absorb from each one of you for the incredible amount of years that each one of you all have spent here today. So parents, please take this opportunity to learn and make informed choices, because that's the whole premise of why we've started Kidsstoppress, which is empowering parents to make informed choices through every single milestone in their parenting journey. To each one of you, if I have to ask you, what does your philosophy stand for in about 60 seconds? What would that be?
Yeah, in Montessori it's making the child independent at all levels, physical, mental, emotional, having mixed age group, inner discipline development. So these are the main criteria, and also having exercise of practical life, which is rare in any other school.
Right. Over to you, Sai.
You said it's a simple question, but I think it's an incredibly hard one to answer. So kids are relentless learners. They're learning all the time with their minds and bodies, messing around, breaking things, putting them together, being together. And this is how they learn to figure out the world and their place in it. And I think our system, or our belief, and the systems we build are all about preserving that and nourishing that, because there are a lot of pressures from around the world to say, hey, there is, as you said, there's a stepping stone, this should be a stepping stone. But we want to say, just hold off, let kids be kids in that space and time, give them that space to be who they are, because they're incredible learners, they'll figure it out. Our job is to sort of step back as much as possible and be there when they need us.
Over to you, Gauri.
Thanks. So coming from the Waldorf system, so actually we call ourselves a Steiner school more than because there's a slight difference in the two. But I'd like to say that one of the foundational concepts on which we are based is head, heart and hands. So we believe in doing, which is through the limbs. That is when the feeling life and the thought life of the child is activated, and that is the true way to educate a child, wherein they are experiencing, so learning through experience and letting that build up on the rhythmic area and then ultimately the nervous system. So,
Wow.
So as Veena aunty said, fostering independence and learning life skills, self-discipline, respect for oneself and others in the environment, and also being contributing members of the society is what we believe in. So raising compassionate children who are contributing members of the society and make the world a better place, because I guess today's children are tomorrow's citizens.
Right.
So I'm Nama from Circles and Cycles, and we follow the Reggio Emilia philosophy. I think trying to be 60 seconds. The core value is the child is competent. They aren't empty vessels to fill. And the environment is the third teacher, meaning they fill blank walls with their work. That brings confidence. And facilitators and the child are researchers together. And of course, it's the most important is it's child interest driven. So these are our core pillars, which I can explain in a longer, if you give me more than 60 seconds.
Super. If I have to, and
for all the parents out there, we actually made our educators into learners. We actually gave them a case study before we started recording this, which was, if I had to give them one example, then how would each of these philosophies do it differently? And we agreed on a case study which was about reading and writing and how each of them would approach it. So over to you, the Montessori way.
Yeah. So of course the children are exposed to a lot of language when they enter our Montessori's primary environment, which is around 2.5 upwards. So first we start with I Spy, just children hearing the sounds the words are made up of. Then we introduce them to the sandpaper letters. So they understand that this is how this sound, this is how it looks. And we usually do the small letters. Most schools in India, I know, are doing the small letters. And then gradually, after hearing all the sounds in the letters, we introduce them to movable alphabet, which is the wooden cutout letters, and they put them together and make the words. They're spelling them. And gradually, simultaneously, their hands, fingers are worked upon for reading and for writing. So they are doing a lot of exercise of practical life, cleaning, cooking, all these activities, and even with sensorial material, their hands, fingers are prepared for writing. A lot of indirect preparation is happening. We don't give them a pencil until they are 3.5 years old. They do scribble and with crayons and coloring and all that is fine, but they don't write.
Right.
So they write with movable alphabet.
Got it.
They make words, they make phrases, and then we introduce them to the pencil and they start writing. So they write first and read later, and then we introduce them to reading. So reading is interpreting somebody else's written work, whereas writing is expressing your own thoughts. So Montessori believed that writing should come first, because whatever your thoughts are, you can put them down. Initially the child may not get the right spellings because all the words are not phonetically correct. So they can spell it anyhow, that's fine initially, as long as they are hearing the sound and they are putting the right sounds.
Right, amazing, I didn't know that. Over to you, Sai.
I think it's a great example of how what we do in very practical matters telescopes all the way into the philosophy of the why. So here, as I said, learning is, they're relentless learner, they're learning all the time. So what do we need to do? Do we really need to sit them down and do something? Our belief is not really, because everything is interconnected. So when it comes to reading, we start with the joy of reading. That's comprehension, that's stories, understanding that, this written word, which they don't recognize, can somehow come to life as a story, as a complete new world. That's the big start for us. The practical act of reading itself, I think that's a process they'll pick up. And of course, there's the reading wars in the US, where for the last 60 years, they've still been debating whether they should use a whole word process or phonics. Now, phonics makes sense, but that's again a great example of how there's a lack of the science of understanding of the science of learning. And what the science of learning, what neuroscience tells us, is that we're always switching between the whole and the parts. You cannot learn the parts if you do not understand meaning, if you do not find meaning. So when we do phonics, let's say in a very structured, rigid manner, we can leach out the meaning. So we try not to do that. At the same time, when we focus only on the whole word, it's hard to do something like English, which is phonemically irregular. What that means is, the same OUGH has 20 different sounds. And that can seem like, as an adult, you think, oh, what, we have to somehow have a process, have a structure to teach them how to determine these patterns in a very conscious manner. But the fact is, we don't do that. We just pick it up. We absorb the patterns. It's unconscious. So how does that translate into practice? What it means is that we don't start reading or writing early, but they're doing a lot of interconnected things. They're listening to educators read books. Books are part of their world. They understand that there's so much that's possible. And the proxy for writing is everything that they do with their hands, fine motor, doodling, everything. And that picks up the fine motor aspect of it. But the symbol recognition, which is so crucial to writing, happens on its own. So we don't actually have a set path and say, we'll start at grade 1 or we won't start before that. if they are precautious, there are children who learn to read at 3 and they pick it up on their own.
Yeah.
There's a wonderful article recently by Peter Gray where he talks about how his kid came along and said he read something in the description and said, why did people fight over onions? It was actually the union, which he misread, and he was 3 years old then, right? And this is the kid just picking it up because his world is parents reading,
Yeah.
understanding the value of reading.
How does it work in his time?
So we actually delay reading and writing. So there are no academics in the kindergarten. Students are mainly learning a lot through oral. So there's a lot of rhythm in the classroom in terms of songs, poems. So they are learning basically through listening. They're listening to their teacher's voice all the time in kindergarten. So there is no formal reading and writing in the kindergarten years. And it's only when they come to grade 1 that they step into the world of formal education. So now it's actually taken up very, very gradually, where the children are introduced to letters one at a time, right at the beginning of the year, and mainly beginning with the consonants. So there is a story which the teacher may narrate, and from which there emerges either something. So for example, if the teacher wants to bring in the letter M, this is a very common example that is given. There may be a story about a mountain, and on the next day the students actually draw that mountain and they see the letter M emerge from the mountain. It also helps because the children actually mirror less. So there are children who have mirrored writing, and because the image is so set in front of them, they actually imagine the mountain before they write the letter M. That the mirroring is much reduced. So that's when it comes to writing, they learn the letters one at a time, at least initially, and then when they are all set, they learn them maybe a few at a time together. They also, like Montessori, we also do a lot of sensorial work. So before they actually write it in their books, there is a lot of sensorial work which is involved. And then finally they begin reading by actually reading something that they already know. So there are a lot of verses, a lot of songs, a lot of poems, short ones maybe, which have been done in the classroom, and it's written on the board and they read it together, and there is a joy in each and every child, irrespective of whether they can actually read or not, because they see that, oh, I can read.
So I would like to say that Montessori begins at birth. So even before the children move to the primary environment, where Beenanti explained us beautifully how language is done, there is also an IC which is called the infant community, where our children enter at, and to move them organically to reading and writing, we actually prepare their hand with a lot of different exercise of practical activities also. So it's very important before we hand over a pencil to a child to doodle or something, it's important to create that agility in the wrist, to strengthen the wrist muscles, you know, so that the child's hand doesn't get tired when they are ready to write. So there are a lot of activities in the infant community which actually are done very organically, so that the child has the confidence, self-confidence to go ahead and hold a pencil and write before they move to the primary environment.
Right. Now, how does Reggio do it?
So I think first and foremost, as I said, it's a child interest-driven philosophy. So we also start our program as early as 6 months, which is parent-toddler. Obviously, we're not reading and writing at that point. But our way of the Reggio Emilia philosophy, what we do is we provoke curiosity. So we call our setups provocations. So it's important to understand that every day a provocation is made, and every day it is set up to observing a child's interest, whether a child is drawn to a ball, or whether a child is drawn for its color, or whether it's drawn because it can see it bounce, or whether he's drawn to it because he can see it float in water. Based on these observations, every day facilitators will sit, and every day they will plan for the next day to build on that interest. So it's a very tedious process of observation, documentation, and making, specific child interest to build the curiosity. So these are provocations, and this is set up from as early as your parent toddler 6 months, going all the way up till they're 4. Having said that, all of the things that are done to build sensory are also, so if it's age appropriate, obviously 6 months provocations will include Play-Doh, will include water or sponge or any of that, but it's interest driven. And each of those, there will be a parent and a child who will stay longer at one, and obviously their interests lie there, and so it will be built on, whether it is shapes or whether it's recognition further as they develop. So really all of this is documented, so the trajectory of the child all the way till they get to 4 is very well seen by us and seen by them. Most importantly, the child sees their own work, it's on the walls, so it also builds confidence. Now, specifically reading and writing, we do use a US-based tool called Learning Without Tears, and it is something that starts off with just a slate and a little sponge and dipped in water, and they are just putting the initial of their name. So actually that begins as early as a process that they do when they come into class, whether the provocation of that day is a Play-Doh in the center of the room where they're asked to sign in, and they learn to either write N, I would write N as Nama in maybe rice, and that's my signing in, or whether it's a stamp that they have to find with their alphabet. So that's just recognition of their name and then sounding Nama, and it's also very relationship based, right? So the facilitator is, they have that relationship, they know their name, they sound their name. And then it goes into the Learning Without Tears, which is more formal, and that also has numeracy, and the slate and the water is one.
We're talking of philosophies here which go back all the way to the 1900s. You're obviously up for the next question because you're as old as 2010. What is a microschool and why the birth of a microschool? You've answered that 100 times.
No, surprisingly, a lot of people don't ask that. So I think they jump right to the philosophy question. But I think micro, it's a structural thing, right? The idea is that schools have become, schools were built on the back of an industrial metaphor.
Yeah.
That we're not focusing on the child, we're focusing on the outcome for society, and we want these finished products. And what that meant is that schools became big, classrooms became very large, and I think something breaks with that. With a microschool, we're saying, let's actually focus on the thing that matters the most, which we call it the learning loop, which is that at the center of this is the child and the educator and the parent. And when you increase those numbers, especially in a school setting, it's very hard, right? So let's say you have 40 kids in a class.
At that age.
At that age, right?
That's the critical
I don't think anyone here has 40 kids in their classes, but I'm using that as an example.
Yeah.
So what happens with larger class sizes, school sizes, is you don't have a community, both at the school level and within the classroom. And then even if you have the best teachers, if you look at the time that they can devote to each child, that can come down to a couple of minutes a day, and that is not great. So the reason we're a microschool is to say, we will actually, given that we are new entrants, we will very shamelessly absorb everything from everything. So I think there's, Montessori has been around for 100 years, fantastic stuff. Waldorf has been around for so long, Reggio Emilia as well. So what are the best parts that we can bring in? But within a system where we're not trying to then scale up these numbers and say, okay, we'll adopt these philosophies and now like to have a 1:40 ratio, exaggerated, or even 1:25 or 1:30, doesn't happen. So you micro because it's small now. Then the next question is, okay, what exactly is that number? We don't have a number. It is when this community breaks, right? So we have 30 kids across both cohorts now. We could probably
Sorry,
take
how many?
30 kids across the entire, like we have 2 schools in Bombay, one in Bandra, one in Khar. We're not just a preschool, so we go 2 to 12 right now. In the younger one, 2 to 6, we have about 15. I think we may take it to about 35, 40 month space before it sets apart. So that's our metric, right? Are we seeing the community sort of fraying? If that's happening, then I think that's the ceiling for the microschool.
So you're not chasing admission cycles.
We're not.
I have to ask that hard reality and that hard question, which I'm sure because and rightly so, because there is real estate cost which is like no other city in the world, and there is reality of you know, well paid teachers, well informed staff, hygiene check. I'm sure there's a whole lot that actually goes into a system. So it's very interesting that you kind of say that. So Sai, I have to ask you this question. The microschool concept started only in 2010, which is fairly recent, versus Montessori, which was 1907, Rudolf Steiner 1919, and Reggio Emilia in 1945. You think that the microschool needs to work harder to establish and compete with the giants? And to all of y'all, how do these philosophies still stay relevant in the 21st century?
I feel we as Montessori is still ahead of time.
That's true.
Because the way it is done, it's so whole. We go from whole to detail.
Right.
We expose them to everything. So, and she has studied so many things, like the child has an absorbent mind till 6 years of age.
She means Maria Montessori.
Maria Montessori. Maria Montessori said that she has, through her observation, and we are also observing the children all the time.
Right.
We also give individual presentations. So, because there is a mixed age group, it's impossible to present something to the whole class.
Right.
So, they are all learning at their own pace.
Right.
So, moving at free progress system in that sense. Then they are, because they are choosing the work. It's free choice also. So, they have the freedom to choose their work. So, whatever you choose yourself, you want to excel in it.
Right.
You want to put in your best efforts. So, they usually do very well.
Wow.
And independence. So, whatever they take, they have to put it back.
Right.
And in a neat condition,
Yeah.
ready for the next person's use.
Right.
There's only one set of material in the class. So, there's just one, say, pink tower or one brown stair, and that's it. So, if you want to do it, you come with a plan, enter the class and decide that first thing I'm going to work with is pink tower, and somebody's already taken it. So, you have to wait.
Yeah.
So, you learn to develop your will, that okay, meanwhile I'll do something else.
Right. I already feel like that's such an important skill set,
Yes.
because I think especially the Indian hustle and jugaad culture teaches you snatch or stand ahead in the line or send somebody else like in the queue to make sure that
Right. And so, because we have grains and things like that, where they use pouring to develop motor coordination. So, if a child spills grains, the older children, just 2-3 of them will just leave their work, help that child who has spilled the grains, and go back to work.
Okay.
They're not even looking for appreciation or praise and see, I did a good job. There's
Are
no
we
praise.
saying that they're not seeking validation in each of these methods?
Absolutely.
Not in Montessori for sure. They don't seek validation because they are doing it from their inner happiness. It's become an internal order
Right.
to be taking care of the environment. So it's a very good, it becomes a very good community where where all children are helping each other, and also mixed age group plays a very important role, because in a mixed age group, the older children get a chance to present to the younger children. And in doing so, they become confident, they have leadership skills, and for the younger children to be able to learn from the older children. So observation becomes a very big tool later on.
Right.
So it's a very, very good community, and I want to say that also in the Montessori community, the teachers are also called directresses or the guides. So their job is only to present the material to the child, and then it is important for the child to be able to manipulate the material. So the child is a sensorial learner, and they need to manipulate with their hands to make that memory out of it.
Got it.
And so we in fact want less adults in the class so that the child gets the time to manipulate. And in doing so, when the child masters that activity without any adult intervention, the joy on the child's face is priceless. So that is what we believe in.
Amazing. Yes, you guys want to chime in about how it's relevant even today?
I think, I'm listening to this conversation and it feels like, my ideas about religion, right? All religions speak the same language but in different texts.
Yes.
So I think the pillars of the 21st century, confidence, building confidence, which is, they do it in a certain way, whether it's socializing with mixed age groups, collaboration, again, mixed age groups. All of these things are, again, very central pillars of Reggio Emilia as well. Our classrooms are, about engaging in a provocation that might last for weeks, but you're going deeper and deeper into it. Similar, again, talking about how to increase concentration, right? That's one of the things. But we do it in a different way. How do we build the confidence of the children? They are recording their own documents. So they prepare something and then they're asked by a facilitator. You might call them directorness, I think you said. But again, facilitator who's there facilitating, not teaching. And they're asking a child, oh, you made this red ball. What does it, what is it? What is it doing? So a child has to reflect on their thinking, on what they've made. Again, very important to create lifelong learners for the 21st century. You've got to reflect on yourself and what you want. And then seeing their work showcased, right, on the wall or through a document or with their parent, just gives them confidence that this is what I've made. Right?
I think it's also ownership to work,
ownership,
right?
Yeah.
And being proud of who you are in your truest self, and that's self-expression.
There's a provocation with blocks or a light table with certain pieces of magnetite or a shadow. You'll have 5 children go around that and they're collaboratively working on maybe, oh, let's build a bridge, let's make this, let's do that. That's collaboration, which is very much, as we know, a 21st century skill.
For parenting tips, celebrity interviews, recipes, conversations with experts, DIYs, and lots more. Subscribe to Kidsstoppress now.